listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be reviewing another definitely fixed IPL match. My notes actually say we'll be covering the blowout win today as Delhi Capitals overcame the Rajasthan Royals. And then enter Chris Morris, who has ruined the whole structure of the show for about the third episode in a row. I'm Jack Hope. We're here with Ross Leck. How you doing, Ross?
Couldn't be happier. My Royals won. Royals.
And we're here with Dan Weston. How you doing, Dan?
I also couldn't be happier. Leicestershire doing well against Surrey. I'm a bit disappointed that Max isn't here to discuss that with me. And I'm also here because my RCB are top of the league, and so I'm wearing a face mask of RCB to celebrate.
It is, Dan, I admire your commitment to the cause. It is a little bit hard to hear you. So maybe...
I'll change it. Yeah. I will wear a bandana instead.
Which is actually a much better look. Ross, can you give our listeners a few messages really quickly?
Yeah, you should like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on all podcast platforms. You should also follow us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And we are now sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. So if you want cricket stuff, go to woodstock.co.uk and you can get yourself one of those sexy bats. And we've got a discount code and everything that we will be putting up on our social media accounts. So as I said, follow, like, subscribe.
Yep, that's true. And if you want to give directly to the Cricket Podcast, we have a Patreon, which you can find in the show notes. So please, if you like what we do, give us money. If not, don't worry about it. Let's talk about the game then. Ross, have you prepared a summary?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Well, I can definitely do one anyway, so that's okay. So out of the first innings, the whole of the top order for the Delhi Capitals was ripped out by the mighty Unadkat, who rolled back the years somewhat. And Rishabh Pant then came in and played a captain's innings before he was run out. Was it his fault? Was his feet stuck in the mud? Was he running in custard? I don't know. But then their top order wagged a little bit and ultimately got Delhi Capitals up to a reasonably competitive 147, which looked to be kind of all right on the pitch they were playing on. The Royals would have been delighted to keep last year's runners-up to kind of 147, but ultimately they were soon in a nightmarish kind of fashion as they lost all of their top four, the top score being Vora, who scored 9 from 11 balls, and the dream looked like it was going to be over. Step forward David Miller, 62 over 43 balls, finally arrived at the IPL after I think he played one match last year and was run out without facing for a duck. Tawatia, also one of last year's heroes, contributed, but then, as Jack said, the mighty Chris Morris at a strike rate of 200 saw them home, batting again with Unadkat. It was a great win for the Rajasthan Royals, and as I said, I could not be happier as one of the men in pink.
Right, let's do this chronologically and quickly rattle through the first innings because Ross, I know you've got to head off slightly earlier today, so we won't be doing a 45-minute show. It'll be a bit tighter. In the power play, Delhi lost 3 wickets. Now, Dan, what is the statistic? If you lose 3 wickets in the power play, you lose 80% of those matches?
Something like that. There's about 1 million caveats to that. The commentators choose not to say most of the time, but yeah, broadly that's the case. Yeah.
And well, they did. Delhi. They looked in a little bit of trouble. Who did they lose? Prithvi Shaw, Shikhar Dhawan, and the big gun, Ajinkya Rahane. Max, because Max does the summary so often, I've confused myself. Ross.
Yep.
Rishabh Pant, 51 off 32. It looked a bit like he was playing a different sport. In like a different country to the rest of the players on this pitch, maybe besides Miller and Morris in the end. But he was going along really well, wasn't he, today?
Yeah, I think it's just something we've grown to expect from Pant, right? He's kind of come into situations which kind of their backs have been up against the wall. You saw it in his performances against Australia. He batted well against England, and I think there is just there's a joyousness to watching Rishabh Pant bat, and it just kind of seems to, as you say, kind of transcend sort of, kind of the game when he is on form. And at the moment, he's in a great purple patch, and it's great to see.
One particular over, he managed to, he sort of tore into Tawatia, hit 20 off the over, 3 4s and 3 2s. Dan, on the topic of fours, because it was a bit of a strange game in that for the first 31 overs of the match, I don't think someone hit a 6.
Yeah.
In fact, it might even have been a little bit longer than that. What was going on, and is this sort of an indication that A, the pitch was slow, or maybe B, Delhi Capitals didn't make the most of their scoring opportunities?
Probably a bit of both, I think. Mumbai is generally not a low-scoring venue, so I'm not sure we want to attribute it all to conditions. The thing is, as well, is that I think probably with the exception of Pant and perhaps more the unproven Lalit Yadav, the Delhi team doesn't really have a load of good 6 hitters in it, and I think that's probably a contributory factor as well. Obviously, Pant come in 16 for 2 after 3 overs, and then it lost Rahane pretty quickly and Stoinis. So he had to have that rebuild. He couldn't go, and even though he struck at like 160 odd, he still couldn't go for that all guns blazing approach where he would hit 6s. So I think it's probably a mixture of a few different circumstances with that, really.
Yeah, to sort of follow that up, I think a good question to ask. I know we were having a chat on our Twitter DMs about this actually. How important is it that batters hit 6s over 4s? I mean, obviously there's the 2 runs in there, but is it worth the risk basically?
Yeah, it largely is. So if you look at the players who, I think we spoke about this on DMs, so the guys with like a 4-6 ratio below 1, so that means that they hit more 6s than 4s. It's always the guys with the big strike rates, your Andre Russells, Hardik Pandyas, those type of players. So being able to hit 6s is what propels you to those 200 plus strike rate innings is. Now, also, I think we spoke about on the pod quite a few times with about 85% of teams with the highest boundary percentage in the match win the match. Now, of the 15% that don't do that, usually it's either extremely close or the team who had a lower boundary percentage but one had a higher 6 percentage. So that they hit less boundaries, but the ones they hit will have 2 runs more. So if you win the boundary percentage count and the 6 percentage count, you're pretty much sorted 100%.
Yeah, I guess the other thing to sort of factor into that, we're taking a little bit of a diversion and we will get back to the cricket in a sec, is that hitting 6s is particularly valuable outside of the power play and particularly at the death when there are guys on the fence who can cut off 4s but cannot, because of the laws of physics, cut off 6s. Back to the cricket. The lower order of Delhi Capitals, I thought they did a really good job, Ross. So I thought Curran, Wokes, Rabada and even Ashwin, they all sort of came in and they managed to score over a run of ball, sort of 130, 140. None of them hit sort of 30 or 40 runs, but between all of them, they made like one quite good innings across those death overs. And I thought they really maximised what the Capitals, I think they reached more or less their realistic top score after the early damage. Do you agree with that, or am I off the mark?
So I think if you consider the type of player that Tom Curran is, Chris Wokes is, Ravi Ashwin is, they have a way of playing. You're not sitting there going, they're not booming loads of 6s everywhere. They're typically like Ashwin and Wokes are actually quite technically correct batsmen, and actually I thought they did reasonably well there. But I also thought it was Sanju Samson and the Rajasthan Royals actually taking their foot off the gas there. I think they let them back into the game. Where, like, if they would have lost today, I think they would have looked back on that part of the game as somewhere where they lost it. And I think actually they probably let them get a few more runs than they should have actually been allowed to get. There is that killer instinct when it does come to T20 cricket, and they didn't particularly show it today. Fortunately, they have the world's most expensive player who did show it at the end of the game. So
I don't know. I think you're being a bit harsh. I mean, I think like one of the benefits of having Curran, Wokes, Rabada, and Ashwin as 6, 7, 8, 9 is that between them they should be able to scratch together 30 off 20 balls, which is what they sort of did today. 148. Dan, I'm going to check in with you on this because you sort of said that might not have been great. 148, was that par I compared to Monday, it looked like absolute cannon fodder. But this pitch, in my mind, was a different beast. It looked a bit tacky. We saw like Fizz and Unad Cat, of all people, bowling really well on it.
Yeah, when you're 37 for 4 after 7 odd overs, to get 147 after 20, you probably would almost always take that, I think, in that situation. I think that's as good as they would have got in the vast majority of circumstances. The thing is, with 147, it's a kind of a defendable total against a team who, with a propensity to implode like Rajasthan often do. We've seen last year that they were frequently 2, 3, sometimes more down in the power play. I think they had the lowest balls per wicket in the power play out of all teams last year. And that certainly manifested itself again today. So, it's funny because at half time, I went to the dugout for a walk and came back, thought, if I miss the first couple of overs of the power play, it won't be such a big drama. By the time I came back, they were 4 down. So, so yeah, I mean, like, you're always in the game, I think, with 150 odd against Rajasthan, no matter what.
So, Rajasthan, the players they lost, I thought the game was virtually over. So, Vora, who is a bit of a nobody, if we're being honest, but Samson and Butler, in that lineup, you sort of looked at that and you thought, if they can get those two early, the rest of the Rajasthan Royals, I mean, they got Shivam Dubey batting at 5, for Christ's sake. It surely you'll win this game. And they did. I mean, Ross, at that point, did you think at all there was any chance Rajasthan could win? I'm talking here after Butler and Samson are gone.
So I am a true Rajasthan believer, and that's what you have to be when you support the boys in pink. When David Miller came in, I'd never really seen since following the IPL and actually following kind of South African cricket. David Miller he's had a bit of a big reputation, Dan. And I'm not sure, does his numbers kind of really back up David Miller, the IPL player?
No.
So that has always been my piece, where I'm just a bit like, he's always flattered to deceive me, and I've always wondered why he actually keeps getting picked up. Today was a huge innings for him. I mean, a huge innings. When Ben Stokes being out, Jack, regardless of if you think it makes the team better or not, David Miller getting the opportunity today was massive.
Well, obviously, it did make a difference. I don't think, honestly, I think if Ben Stokes is in that team, probably he's just out early. And then David Miller can't be the guy who comes in at 6, stabilises things, and gives them like the outside chance of stealing it at the death. Let's talk, because they sunk. I mean, so they were in trouble at the beginning. Didn't get much better. They were 73 for 5 off 13 overs. Dan, I think you'll probably be in agreement with me here. And I've said it once. I literally cannot get my head around Shivam Dubey at number 5 in an IPL side. He averages 16 in the IPL at a strike rate of 120. Is there anything that I'm missing here? Or is this just like desperation, effectively, from Rajasthan?
I can't get my head around Shivam Dubey full stop, so I'm actually even more so than you, especially not 4.4 crore. And I spoke about that in the mega thread after the auction as well. I thought it was an absolutely bizarre purchase. He doesn't get in a team as a batter, and he doesn't get in a team as a bowler. He doesn't really bowl that much. I can't understand how he's played international cricket, and I don't see the upside with him, to be brutally honest with you. I'm sorry if that sounds bad, but yeah, that's where I'm at. And also, you talked about a bit earlier about Stokes being injured and whether that had an impact on the result. I think probably if Stokes was fit and would have been a bowling option, they might not have picked an Adcat. So it kind of contributed that way as well, I think.
Yeah, that's a good secondary point. Ross, you talked a little bit about Miller. He was one of the few people in this game who really looked like they were up for the battle. Maybe he was playing for his place a little bit. We had speculated that Liam Livingstone might be a better option than him overall. But he eventually sort of got the pace of the wicket, managed to accelerate his scoring. The thing that helped him with that was Rishabh Pant's decision to bowl Marcus Stoinis. I think. Again, Rishabh Pant, we gave him a little bit of grief for messing up the Wokes overs in the first game, only bowling Wokes 3 overs. I think his bowling changes again today were a bit iffy, don't you reckon?
There's no iffy about it. They were rubbish. That is the bit. Like the fact that it was dumb to pick Tom Curran in the first place. It was the mega dumb to bowl him in the key overs that were there. Like it was baffling. And the fact that Ashwin was going he went less than 5 and over in his overs, and then to give that one to Stoinis meant that everything had to change. They weren't going to go to Ravi Ashwin for overs kind of 18 or 18 to 20. And so that meant that they had to go to somewhere else. They'd already bowled out Rabada. They'd already bowled out Wokes this time. He might have been so desperate to get rid of Wokes over because he didn't want the criticism. But there was a bit like, I didn't understand that piece. They didn't need to do it. If you pick Tom Curran in that lineup, like you have to give him the overs, but you do not need to bowl him at that point in the game. And I think it was a total mismanagement from that piece. And it's not just going to be Pant making those decisions. I don't think like in these IPL teams they have bowling plans, and I think fundamentally Delhi Capitals got it wrong today.
Can I just make a point there about Ashwin as well, because he's gone 3 overs for 14, and for almost the entirety of the Rajasthan innings from early on until the death, they had at least one left-hander, if not 2 left-handers at the crease. Why wouldn't you bowl a guy who's bowling well with a good matchup? It's just bizarre.
I thought it was a great point in the power play. So I was doing some comms for Guerrilla Cricket, and they had. I thought they'd try and get an over in the power play. They ended up bringing him in the 7th over, just after, but it was just sort of odd the whole way through. And particularly, I mean, spin wasn't easy on that wicket. It had that slight stickiness to it. And Ashwin, I mean, 3 overs for 14. I mean, in what world do you pick a frontline bowler? They bowl 3 overs for 14 runs, pick up a wicket, and you're like, nah, mate, we're not gonna bowl you out. We're gonna give Marcus Stoinis a chance to turn his arm over here. And it was Stoinis bowling to a left-hander, as you sort of point out, Dan, who got car parked twice in 2 balls. And that sort of gave Rajasthan the sniff they needed. Let's go on to talk about the death. And I think we should. The last 2 overs are the really crucial, the really crucial moments of this match that we need to discuss. My dad, who I think's only really got into the IPL this season, maybe watched it a bit last year. Before that, it just wasn't something that registered. He said it was the worst bowling he's ever seen in the IPL for the last 2 overs. I don't know if I'd go that far. I saw Sheldon Cottrell feeding to Watia last season. But it wasn't great, was it, Ross? It was pretty. I mean, Rabada's penultimate over. We're going to get on to Tom Curran, but let's go piece by piece. Rabada bowled badly today.
Yeah, I think that it was the first ball. And Rabada's best asset is his searing Yorker. And I think he's got that. He's one of those bowlers who is one of his go-to deliveries. He's also a pretty rapid bowler, surprise, surprise. And so there's that bit where you either try and hit the stumps or you pull the length back. He bowled it in Max's favourite position in the slot to Morris. And that flew, right? It absolutely flew. Next one came through and it was a little bit quicker, sorted him out. And then I don't know, it almost fell apart. I'm not sure if it was kind of match fitness or maybe there's just kind of an kind of South African rivalry kind of in there. But oh, actually, I should be in the team. No, I should be in the team. And Morris planted him. The one off his legs was ridiculous. Just having the ability to do that anyway was staggering.
I mean, I thought what was particularly bad about Rabada, who is a bowler who has like reasonable location with most of his deliveries. That was a wicket that we saw pretty much all day. People really struggled to hit back down the ground or even to hit through the offside. To give Morris the opportunity to hit squarish of the wicket was pretty criminal. I thought, and maybe you're right, Ross. Maybe it was a bit of match fitness. Maybe Chris Morris just sort of guessed what was going to happen. But I think particularly that first ball of the over, he bowled it 120 kph, which is not quite slow enough to be a slower ball and not quite quick enough to be a threat for pace. It's sort of like exactly the speed that you'd want.
It was a hit me ball, wasn't it? It was an absolute hit ball. It was just like Morris in his head to go, please just pitch this up, please. Oh, you've bowled it slowly. Brilliant. See you later.
Speaking of hit me balls, I've described in my notes Tom Curran's deliveries in the last over as meatballs, which I think is a baseball phrase for like just the most hittable deliveries you can possibly bowl. Dan, I don't know how when you do your analysis, how much do you analyse sort of where people pitch the ball or game plans for a final over? Because it looked like Tom Curran's was, as a Sunday captain, I would be disappointed if one of my bowlers bowled that over.
Well, the first question I want to ask is, was the last ball that got smacked for 6 actually going to have been a no ball anyway? Because it was waist high full toss. It was just horrendous. But yeah, when I work with teams, I don't focus on that. We will focus on that as a team, but the video analysts will do a lot more with that kind of thing. But yeah, we would look at that type of thing, plans, even stuff like if you're looking at what a bowler does, what's the bowler's go-to ball after getting hit for a boundary, stuff like that. So some pretty reasonably in-depth stuff. The bowling choices at the death are also awful. So I've run some numbers, and from the start of 2018, Chris Morris is only good against right arm pace, striking at 173 against right arm pace, and he's like sub 130 basically, or round 130 or sub 130 at everything else. Okay? So
if they'd given Ashwin the final over, there's a pretty good chance they win that match.
I would have given Ashwin. I mean, I would never have got into a situation where Ashwin would have had to bowl in the last over, but I would have backed Ashwin over Tom Curran to bowl that last over 100% of the time.
I'd back you over Tom Curran, Dan. Like Jenny, you could pull your mask down across your eyes, and you'd probably still have a better opportunity than bowling than he did today. It was awful.
I mean, in Cricket 2.0, I read once that it was something. If you've got 80 crore to create an IPL team, you shouldn't have Corey Anderson bowling at the death. And I think you can say the same about Tom Curran as well. I mean, 5.25 crore. I tweeted it at the time of the auction. I thought it was absolutely crazy, and it was shown again. It's not only was it a bad purchase at auction, it's been horrendous to be picked twice and be doing the same thing over and over again. What is it they say about the definition of insanity?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Curran is sort of the. I can't get my head around it because I was trying to sort of think through why a team might pick him up, and obviously he plays a lot on TV, and so the initial times he was picked up in the IPL auction, maybe that comes up. The IPL auction comes after the Big Bash. He's quite often okay in the Big Bash, so maybe that explains the first time. But like, as you say, Dan, like if we've been watching England, we've probably seen every T20 game England have played for the last 3 years. And he's been good in like 1 or 2 of them. He has like some pretty high highs, but generally speaking, what we saw today, like when he was bowling the last over, you could see exactly what was going to happen. There'd be at least 2 balls that could go, and he didn't have that luxury. I think maybe we'd just quickly talk about why he's not a very good bowler, because it's clear that he isn't, and I think the first ball he bowled is pretty illustrative of the issue he has. So Tom Curran, he's a variation bowler who bowls some quick deliveries, but really relies on the slower balls into the surface to trick the batsman or the batter so that he can take wickets and prevent runs. I think there are 2 problems with that overall for Tom Curran. His fast ball is not really quick enough to put people off balance particularly, and 2, his variations, I don't know if they've been worked out maybe over the last few years. Like Dan, you were talking about some of that video room stuff, and batters will know how Tom Curran releases a slower ball. I don't know if that's what's going on, but to get into that in a little bit more detail, the way Curran bowls his slower ball is flicked out the back of his hand. It's like he uses a really flexible wrist and he bowls it with almost a perfect seam presentation, but with backspin because it's not come out the front of the hand. Now, what you want with a slower ball like that, effectively, is to put enough spin on the ball so that it dips. And if you get it really right, and Jared Kimber was talking about this with respect to Darren Bravo's slow ball, if you get it really right, the ball comes out and it looks like it's going to beam the batter. So even though they might be able to pick the ball out of the hand, and we've all probably been in nets, even when a bowler bowls a ball that's going to hit you and it's going to beam you, you flinch. You don't. Your first reaction is self-preservation. It's not to whack the ball for 6. Mm-hmm. And so even though the batter might know it's a slower ball, if you can get the ball up and with enough spin so that it'll dip, you will scare the batter into basically playing a bad shot. Now, effectively, he is not able to do that anymore. That's why he's getting hit around the park. Batters are not scared. Their first reaction isn't to flinch. Their first reaction is to plant their foot, clear the leg, and just heave through the line of the ball. Doesn't help when you slam that slower ball right into the middle of the wicket as well, because it's got no side spin on it, so it's not going to kick. It's just going to plug. But overall, like, he really needs to either come up with another variation to mix up what he's doing, get quicker, or probably not play at this level of cricket anymore. Hopefully that sort of, analysis
Jack,
makes sense.
Jack, you've answered Uta, Unuj, Pitesh, Parth, Marcelino, Regis. Everybody in the live chat has been saying, what is a Tom Curran? And you've just explained perfectly kind of what the issues are there.
Cool. So eventually, Morris hits 2 sixes. It's game over. Should we do some Twitter questions? Then we'll have Ross. Can you hang on for 5 extra minutes and do some live chat?
Let's do it. Come on.
Okay. Right. Let's start. There's on Twitter as well. There's loads of Tom Curran stuff. So I'm going to sum it up with probably the best one, and that's from @SomeEarth. How long until we find out that Tom Curran was adopted, Ross?
I don't even think I need to answer that one. That's just
that is pretty harsh. This is a good one though, and Dan, I'd be interested to hear your point on this. And Pushkar sent it in. I think it's sarcastic, but the question is: should Sanju Samson have taken that single? Obviously referring to the first Rajasthan Royals game.
I got a different opinion to pretty much everyone who's commented on the matter. I think because it was picked up around the boundary area. It was fielded in the deep. I would have just tried to hair 2.
Yeah.
To try and get back on strike. And
but I guess the risk there is if he's run out, then he's...
Yeah, but then you've still got someone else to come in.
Yeah, but I was in the try and hit 2 sixes camp. I thought that...
I heard you on the pod, yesterday, yeah.
I think... So I think the thing with the 2, just to go back to that, I think the throw was so crap coming in that it looked like the 2 was on. But actually, like, anybody with like not a noodle arm would have run him out. So yeah. I'm just looking through Twitter really quickly. The only other thing that hasn't come up really is Abhishek, who wants us to talk about Unad Cat a little bit. Ross, he was pretty good, wasn't he?
It was a huge performance from him, right? And I think last time he performed was about 2017. So there is a piece there where, like, fair play to him. And he also did the job with the bat, right? So he had the job with the ball. He was in the lower order to actually got to have a positive strike rate, and he did his job. So I think it's a great game from him. And I think there's a couple of things talking about MVPs and this. Is it David Miller? Unadkat won them the game, I think, today. So other than Chris Morris. So well played him.
I managed to look like a right idiot watching the match with my wife, actually, because
he's rubbish.
I said, he's not very good. And then he went back to his 2017 form where he took like 24 wickets at 13. And then, one of them. But I just brought up his numbers out of some interesting comparison. From 2018 onwards in T20 cricket until yesterday, he got his economy rate in the power play was 8.2 almost, at a strike rate of 41 balls per wicket. Now in the middle overs, he's averaging about 60, and at the death, his economy is almost 13. So it's a great game, right?
Yeah. I mean, we saw 2 bowlers. I mean, Tom Curran and Unad Cat. I would bracket in the same group, i.e., lucky to be at this IPL, and yeah, like Dan, as you say, it can diverge so much, can't it? In one day, I would honestly be a little bit surprised if we ever see Tom Curran play in the IPL again. I just can't see how you can justify.
So I generally think that Tom Curran has this thing where he likes to embarrass himself. So I think he takes pleasure of embarrassing himself. Like you see with the headband, see with his performances. And I reckon he'll continue to get picked because he threatens to embarrass himself even more for Delhi. And it will do reputational damage to the Capitals.
Right, Ross, what have we got over on the chat?
We've got all kinds of stuff.
Anything not related to Tom Curran? Because I feel like we've done Tom Curran.
Yeah,
I don't want to be too harsh to him. Like as well.
Yeah, we have G. Koufax who said, "Why is Dan wearing a forehead diaper today?" But we'll quickly move on to that one. Vic London, after your correct pronounce of Punjab yesterday, Jack, has Chris Morris earned his 16 crore today, Dan?
We've certainly gone a fair chunk of the way to doing that, yeah, because I think we said before, when Archer's injury was announced, if he's out for, like, say, first 5 games and they could win 2 of them, then they're in with a shout still. And he's gone a long way to winning 1 of them, that's for sure, today, with wicket and 36 off 18 balls. It was only a worldy performance from Nagcat and Miller, really, that probably stopped him being man of the match.
We've also had one from Regis who said, the real reason why Rajasthan Royals won today was because I wore this hat yesterday and after the last defeat truly supported them. If Max does the same for CSK, they might have a chance of winning. So I completely buy into that.
That's a really valid point as well, because I got my RCB face mask before they played their first match, and I've worn it proudly, and they've won both matches.
I don't actually take this off. I actually sleep in this hat. So this is anyway. Swadin as super chats. Thank you very much, Swadin, for this. I thought Ross's team will go belly up tonight. Maybe run or not to run Sanju was wrong. So there we go. Going back to that point around the running, where. Rickin comes in here, says Miller played a great innings today, but do you all think that Rajasthan Royals could still benefit from having Livingston in the middle order, who gives that extra bowling option? Jack, you like Livingston? I'm
a big Livingston buyer. I think they'll not drop Miller after today because he got some runs, but I think Livingston offers a little bit more dynamism. In that 5 role, you can get rid of Shivam Dubé or at least move him down the order a little bit. And as you say, Ross, he can bowl both leg spin and off spin, which is pretty useful. Obviously, when they lose Stokes, they lose a bowling option from their top 6. David Miller doesn't offer that. Livingston does. I'm not saying he'll bowl every game. Might get an over or 2, but crucially, I think, and this is where Livingston might be better than Stokes as well. Livingston probably could get in the team for his hitting, and that's vital when you try and win T20 matches.
Yeah, definitely.
There's also a bit, so we haven't actually covered it within the questions, but there's plenty of kind of hate on Twitter for the English contingent that are currently performing. Chris Wokes was flying the flag today for England. He did brilliantly, didn't he? I mean, Butler failed again. But Wokes is kind of showing the England lineup what they were missing in the limited over series against India.
Well, it's great to see all the Birmingham Phoenix guys having a great IPL so far. Chris Wokes, Moeen Ali, Liam Livingstone. His stock has grown even though he's on the bench. It's good to see. So yeah, those English guys doing pretty well.
So that is the majority of the questions that we have had through live chat, and we've covered quite a lot of ground, I think.
I did see one that I want to ask because it's funny. Someone, I can't remember the name. Someone said, "Is Steve Smith necessary for Delhi Capitals to get back into things?" Would anyone like to? Would you pick Steve Smith for this team, Ross?
No, I don't know why they picked him up in the first place. They got done at the auction, didn't they? Really, that if they had a receipt, I'd take him back.
Dan, would you be playing Steve Smith?
I'm not quite as harsh as Ross, but unfortunately, it's a firm no as well. And again, I don't understand why they bought him at auction. It just didn't make any sense. And I thought they might actually have played him a little bit more because Shreyas Iyer got injured, but they haven't even deemed that necessary. So yeah, I don't understand it. Maybe RCB actually did trick them.
Well,
cool.
One last question is from Vic, because it was a super chat from him, so we should cover this. If Delhi Capitals don't clarify their strategy, I don't see them getting to the finals. Is this a year where Rajasthan Royals under Sangakkara could make the top 4? No.
Yeah. Right. So, but I do want to say, I do think that Delhi are a bit overrated going into this tournament. People bracketed them up with Mumbai Indians because they came second last year. I think like Delhi and SRH were a lot of people's next best team. I know SRH have lost twice, but I think SRH are probably a better cricket team Because I think their bowlers are just a little bit better. And I think today we saw why, like, some of the problems with Delhi, in that if their two good pacers aren't around, they're a bit weak, and their batting isn't all that. Besides Rishabh Pant, really.
Well, I think it's probably a bit harsh with their batting, but you sort of say if your top order just goes, like, where everyone talks about having that anchor role, they just didn't have that right today. And I mean, I'm not a fan of the anchor role by any stretch of the imagination, but Rahane is in that team to fulfil that role. Rahane is struggling at the moment, and that is a worry with Shreyas Iyer being ruled out of the tournament. So.
Okay, right, shall we wrap up the podcast then? Dan, thanks very much for joining us. Do you want to let people know once more where to find you if they want their statistical fix?
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SAAdvantage, website www.sportsanalyticsadvantage.com.
Yeah, Dan, plenty of people have been asking for Rabada's death over stats, so you might have to get the old thing.
I'll see if I can tweet that out later, yeah, no problems.
That'd be really good. Ross, goodbye. And a little reminder for everyone. Find us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a hello over there. We've got a Patreon if you want to give to us directly. And Woodstock Cricket is where you should be going to buy your next cricket bat. Bye-bye.
Brilliant. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for watching. Rajasthan, 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 Rajasthan.